Hey, it's Don, the Auction Professor here. I wanted to address a few questions that we get quite often. The same basic question in regard to the cost of running Longtail. I get a lot of people talking about the fees that we pay and that they must be eating up all the costs. So I wanted to just show and break this down cost by cost and actually show you some figures. A similar question is brought up for RA items. The cost of gas to drive around to these places. Some people could spend $500 in gas a month or even more than that. And plus you're buying the items in the works as well too. So we'll address that. And the final question is on wholesale and the cost of transporting or shipping in pallets of goods. These all break down to the same basic concept. So let's look at first the Longtail, my process in the store that we share with you. Now there's many philosophies and we're just talking about the three that I get the most questions of today. There's many versions and mixings of this. There's no right or wrong way. It just depends on what works for you and the items that you sell. So you could have some Longtail items, some auction items, some RA items, and some wholesale items, which is something that we do, mostly Longtail. Probably about 98% of all of our items are done Longtail in the store we share with you. Let's look at Longtail items first. This is letting items sit for a very long time until they sell. Now with this business plan or any of the other ones, you have to do your research on the items to know that they're worth selling in the first place. If they're not worth selling, you're just wasting your time. We only list items that we know are going to sell or we've researched them fully to know that they're even worth listing. If something's not worth listing, I just won't list it. It's just what you do. So know your items, do your research. Now we have an anchor store. We don't go month by month. We go year at a time. So we have a cheaper fee than someone just going month by month. We pay $300 a month. Now we get $150 worth of boxes. So basically for $150, we are getting 10,000 listings. So half of the $300 fee, $150, is what we pay for the first 10,000 listings. Now any listing over that 10,000 we pay 5 cents for. So let's just assume that someone has 20,000 listings. We have way over 20,000 listings, but let's just pull it at 20. It's an easy number to look at. So as we said, we'd have $150 for the first 10,000 listings. That's $300 store fee minus the $150 in boxes. For the next 10,000 at 5 cents a piece, it's another $500. So to list 20,000 items every month over and over costs $650 every month to list those items. That's your list cost. So in all honesty, we make way over that just in one day of the week. There's no reason to say that that's bad. $650 is a real good, cheap, lower price for listing how many listings we have, especially when you extrapolate in how much money we're actually making off of it. Now as well, let's just say we've got these 20,000 listings up right now. In this one store, there's 20,000 listings. This is fictional, but this is based on real numbers, real figures. So let's say with that 20,000 listings, we're actually selling $15,000 worth of merchandise a month. Again, we only spent $650 to actually list that. We also have in there the fee that we pay for PayPal or whichever service, which I'm just going to say it's 3%. It's actually a little less than that, but we'll just say 3%. So 13% of whatever it's sold for is gone for final value fees, basically. That covers your little charge card fees or anything like that. So if we figure that out, it's 13% of $15,000 is going to be our final value fee. And that comes to $1,950. So far we have $150 for our store subscription, our anchor store, $500 to list another 10,000 listings, and $1,950 for final value fees. So our figures now, these are so far our expenses for that $15,000 that we actually sold. And the next fee is the cost of the items themselves. And we're just going to say $300 to make that $15,000. That's a fair, legitimate cost breakdown of what we probably spent. Now, this is just the items that we sold that we're figuring in here. Nothing else has sold, so we're only figuring that $300 in their cost, our COGS, our cost of goods sold. So we have our $150 for our anchor store fee, $500 for another 10,000 listings, $1,950 for our final value fees. That covers our PayPal fee, any incidental charge card fees, and the 10% final value fee that eBay charges us. Now, these numbers can fluctuate if eBay changes things, of course. Then the last number is the $300 that we have into the cost of the items. This is just an estimate. I pay almost nothing. Many items I've paid a nickel or less for a piece that have sold. So that's where these numbers come from. You see the price I pay, you see the type of items I buy. Again, these numbers could vary depending on what you sell. It could be higher, it could even be lower where you pay even less than what I do. So looking at the $15,000 that we sold, we're just going to minus the $2,900 from it, and that comes out to $12,100. That would be your profit, basically. Of course, you'll have taxes and things along that line, too. And, of course, you can do RA and wholesale and do a combination of all of these together. There's no right or wrong way, as I've said. So it just depends on what you're doing, what you can find, your sourcing abilities, and your abilities to figure this all out. Now, let's look at an RA model. And we're going to just say we're doing RA on eBay. Of course, all of these numbers would be skewed if you're selling on multiple platforms. Say if you're selling on Amazon as well, it's going to actually increase your profits because you're not paying any of these other fees other than when you sell something on another platform for the most part. eBay is different, obviously. So we're looking at eBay RA, which is a perfectly good model. It works for many people. There's nothing wrong with selling RA items on eBay. You may get a little less, you may get a little more, it just depends. You may be gated in items and have your only option to sell RA items is on eBay. So that is why that is a possible model for you. Now again, we're spending $150 on an anchor store this way. We sold $15,000. We don't need more than 10,000 listings, so that's our total fee is $150 for the anchor store. We also have $1,950, which will be the same cost for the final value fees, 10% for selling $15,000. Same basic principle as we were talking about before. Big difference here is you may have spent a little more in merchandise. So let's say that $15,000 of merchandise you sold cost you $1,200. You also drove around a lot and have $500 more into gas for the month, which is quite a bit of gas money. And everybody talks about gas being such an expense. How can you afford to do it? $500 is a drop in the bucket when compared to $15,000. So now all we'd have to do is add up the totals. $150 for the anchor store. We have $1,950 for our eBay and PayPal final value fees. That covers all the fees at the end of the day. Then we have our cost of the items, which is $1,200. So if you add this all up, you get $3,800. So that's your basic cost into this. That's what you've got for expenses. Now, we're not counting electricity and utilities or your taxes, your income tax on this. We didn't count it in the other model. We're not going to count that right now at all. Most people do sell on other platforms. If you don't, you're really missing out. So take that into consideration as well. So we have the $3,800 of expenses. We're just going to minus that from $15,000 and we have $11,200. Not quite as high as the other model. Again, these prices could vary. The other model, we could say that we spent more and it comes out in basically the same model here. But you're making $10,000 either way with either model, even spending $500 extra bucks in gas. So basically these two models are fairly close to each other. You're still making over $10,000. Whether you're paying extra for fees, you're paying extra for gas, or extra for the merchandise itself. It all weighs out the same. You're still making a pretty good profit at the end of the day. In the first example, Longtail, it's an 80% profit. In the RA example, it's a little less profit margin, of course, but you're still making a good chunk of money. Now, you could hustle and make double that if you source more and spend more on actual sourcing items. That's how you scale up. You buy more items. Maybe you hire somebody to help you source and go to different locations, and you can kill two birds with one stone at the same time. That's another way to possibly do this. I have employees, so in the first example, you could hire employees. So you might have a little more cost into it, but it's just going to be about the same basic version of this. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Most business models can be tailored to a specific need or a specific business. So let's just look at one more example here, wholesale. Now, I hear wholesale when you're buying pallets that the shipping is too expensive and you can't make any money. So in this model as well, we will look at it $150. You have an anchor store. That's your fee after you take out the boxes that you're getting for this. No other initial fees are listed. It's just the initial $150 to list all the listings you want in the wholesale area. You sell again $15,000 worth of merchandise. So you still have the same final value fees, $1,950, which covers PayPal and the final value fees for eBay. So that's all your fees there. Now we also have to figure out the cost of the goods, the COGS, cost of goods sold. So in this example, we bought 2 pallets for $500, and that's what we actually have invested in. So that's another $1,000. We also have shipping. Now I've done some pallet purchases, so I can talk a little bit about that. Basically, when you have 2 pallets coming to the same location, it does lower your cost per pallet depending on where you're getting it from. So we'll have an initial cost for shipping of another $850. So we'll add that up as well. We have $150 for the anchor store. We have $1,950 for the final value fee as well as PayPal fee. We have $1,000 into 2 pallets, and then we have $850 into shipping of those pallets. And if you add that all up, it's $3,950. So we'll subtract that as well from $15,000, and then we get $11,050. That's, again, the basic profit we are getting off of that. And as well, I did not include or count on income tax or utilities for electricity and such forth. These are just basic numbers, just to give you a basic idea, simplifying it a little bit so you can see. All 3 of these examples and business models made us at least $10,000. Still sold the same amount of money. We still spent basically around the same amount in costs. Give or take $1,000 or so. And these numbers can fluctuate. A wholesale, they may have gotten something better than this and spent $500-$600 less. They may have not spent as much on shipping. Other options, they may have spent more on RA items. It's a varied scale and all the way across on this. But with looking at these examples, you can see that the cost of gas means nothing. The cost of listing the items also means nothing, as does shipping. These are the 3 basic questions that I hear a lot. Not just me, but other channels have the same basic questions. Anybody who does RA has had that same question. You must spend a fortune on gas. How can it be worth the while? I get the question on Longtail, as do other people who do Longtail. Aren't you spending a fortune in fees? Aren't your fees eating up your profits? And finally, we get the same basics for wholesale. The cost of shipping is just figured into the COGS of the item in general. It's not a big factor in it. It just means you spent a little more for the item. That's all that means. And as I've said, your model can be whatever it is for you. There is no right or wrong way. Everybody has like a hyperbreed of one of these types of business models where they may do 2 or 3 different versions all mixed together. You may do auctions, you may do wholesale, you may do Longtail, and you may do RA all at the very same time. Just find out what works for you and go with that. Improve on it if something doesn't work. Switch your items up. Do what you need to do to get it going. But all of these models are bona fide, fully functional models that will make you a good profit. As long as you know what you're doing, and the number one thing, as I've said, is to research everything. Research is the key that will make all of this work for you. Well, there you go. That's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gave you some thought on this. Hopefully this answered a lot of questions for quite a few people. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.